Okay, guys, we have Chris Randone here. You guys know him from The Bachelorette. You also know him from Bachelor in Paradise. Chris, thank you for coming on She's All Batch.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. We're going to dive right into this stuff. You recently commented on an Instagram post, and it was about Nate and Michelle breaking up over the phone. You made a comment, put it out there, and said that your marriage actually ended over the phone.
Yeah, this was pretty embarrassing comment from myself,
Okay.
believe it or not. So I will say, uh, definitely shouldn't have even wrote it.
Okay.
I don't know if it was the caffeine or what was going on during that moment when I saw it, but yeah, I mean, obviously there is truth to that, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at it, it was during a pandemic, right? I, left California to Florida for a little bit. So technically speaking, it really had to happen over the phone.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it was just an embarrassing comment. And honestly, my girlfriend actually pointed out to me, she was like, it kind of seems like you were making it about yourself. And I deleted it like
Okay.
literally like 10 or 15 minutes afterwards. But I shook my head. I was like, damn, why did I write that? But yeah, I mean it over the phone when it took place. I've been in that kind of situation, but I think what I was trying to do was be funny, and I don't think it like came off as funny. So
Okay.
once again, one of those dry humor things that didn't stick.
Right. If you deleted it and you don't want to even bring it back up, I'm fine to just skip this
No, no,
question.
it's I mean no, no, it's fine. I mean it's not that
Yeah. Okay.
it's not really not that crazy.
Okay. So you did end a marriage. You got married and engaged on TV to Krystal from Ari's
Yeah.
season. Are you guys on good terms today?
Yeah, no, we're good. I reached out to her not too long ago because I don't know if I think it's known. I don't know if it's known publicly, but her mom got like diagnosed with cancer.
Oh no, I
And I
didn't.
think she had they removed like what's it called when you remove the breast? I forget from the breast cancer. A
I don't
vasectomy.
know what
It's
it's
not a
called, but I know
vasectomy.
what you're talking
It's
about.
like a
Yeah.
mastectomy, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
think
yeah,
so.
so I guess they performed like a mastectomy on her, and they found like multiple nodules that I had tumors, I
Oh,
guess. And I think it's like at a stage where obviously it wouldn't be good to anyone if they heard that. So reached out, just sending prayers and well wishes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, what's crazy is I think like when it all went down, like, just getting divorced and all that other stuff, it's a shock at first, but it's so crazy how you learn so much from that stuff. Like, you realize that you really can't control anything and you have to accept like the different paths that happen in life. So,
mhm.
originally when it happened, I was like, damn, I can't believe this happened. And she was pregnant and all this stuff. And I'm thinking like, damn, this is wild. This is like a movie.
Mhm.
And but now I look back and I'm like, she's happy. She's got a good guy. They got a beautiful baby. You just got to be happy for her. And
Good.
yeah, so I mean, like she's got my support. Like there's no ill will or negative energy over here with her. So I just the only thing I can do is just always wish her the best.
Well, that's great. I'm so
Mhm.
glad that you're in that place with her. To be honest, by the comment that you wrote about the comparing to the Nate and Michelle, I thought you were not in a good place.
I know that. I think that's why I wanted to delete it too. I was like,
All
it
right, so
was
we're setting the record straight.
so embarrassing. Yeah, no, there's no negative energy between us. Only, we're good on all levels. So,
Good.
yeah, I could definitely see it from that too. So that's why you gotta like refrain from the Twitter fingers or the
Yeah.
Instagram fingers. They can put you in some serious harm.
Yeah. Well, don't be embarrassed though. I mean, like there's plenty of other stuff going on that's way worse than that. And it just sometimes people can't pick up on tone if you're writing an Instagram comment, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's so true. Like it's like if we read a book, right? Like you and I read the same book, we would have two different perceptions of that book.
Totally.
It's the same with like captions and comments and all of that stuff.
Right.
In general, I think as a viewer watching it, you and Crystal seemed like such an oddball pairing, very like an opposites attract situation. What would you say like brought you guys together as a couple most and why you guys even
Villains.
got engaged? Oh
Do you
yeah,
feel like
true.
the
Yeah.
villain
Yeah.
edit kind of like brought you guys together?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. The villain edit definitely brought us together. I think when you have like that type of bond where a lot of people are just really not on your side and just don't really favor you as a character in this space or the series, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you bond on those things, and obviously if you don't have the greatest paths on the original show, and you meet someone that had kind of the same situation, it's like, oh, that immediate connection brings you closer. You feel like you want to open up more. And I think when you're able to trust someone because of that, obviously you're able to open up more and express to them who you really are. And I
Hmm.
think that's kind of what really drove us throughout that time. But I mean, I will say the in that whole time, especially like the first, I want to say like week or so, the producers didn't want us at all to hang out, especially on camera.
Really?
So,
Why? Who'd they want you and
Why?
her with?
Yeah, that's weird to me.
looking back, I think what it comes down to is if you're not very well loved and perceived by the public as a positive character, they don't want to focus on you in a positive light. Unfortunately, I think that's just kind of how it is. And so obviously I had that little thing with Tia going on at first, and definitely didn't have my best of moments, in regards to that. But I was also very confused because I mean, when I wasn't on camera with her, like she was with Colton every single minute of the day. And so me, I'm like, hey, this girl, I know she doesn't like me. Like, she's with Colton, like she's
Hmm.
obsessed. They have this like undeniable energy between them. Um, Krystal and I were hanging out the second day actually when they went on a date. I guess Colton came down, they left, and me and Krystal hit it off. But they wouldn't let us hang. Every day she would ask, "Hey, I want to hang out with him." They wouldn't let her. Same thing with me. They kept, forcing me on the Tia narrative, and after a while, I was just so annoyed because I felt like I was forcing myself to having to say things that I knew I didn't want to say, and be with this person. And Tia's a great girl. No, no, it's nothing against
Yeah.
her. Nothing bad to say against her. It's just I knew that her and Colton had so much history and
Yeah.
this chemistry that, man, I just don't want to deal with it. Like
Yeah,
you
do you
guys.
think they were trying to make you like the bad guy in the love triangle
100
there?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm so thankful that the second night I lost my voice, so I couldn't speak, and they were just constantly trying to like, "No, when Colton comes back, like, you gotta put him in his place, you gotta do this, you gotta do that." I'm like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like I'm like, "Man, I just had a really rough experience on Becca's season. The last thing I wanna do right now is do anything that is looked at as negative."
Right.
And they're like, "Well, you're gonna do this, this, and this," and I'm like, "No, I'm not. I can't even talk right now." So, the best part about that night was Colton came back. I think Nick and Jordan were like the soldiers there. They're just fighting him, and I'm
Hmm.
just sitting there like I can't talk. So
Right.
I'm just chilling. So thank God, because I feel like that could have put me in a position where I didn't know the game of how reality TV works, at least from the Bachelor perspective, right? You're always saying yes. You're always thinking like you doing this and this and this is gonna, um, you know, put you in a position to either stay longer or make them happy. And to be honest with you, you have the power to say no whenever you want. And I really failed at that a lot of the times, in that show. And I think, I wish I would have learned differently or knew differently in that moment.
Hmm.
Yeah. When you say like you didn't know the game, what do you mean by that? And like, do you know the game now? And like, what is the game?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. From what, going on those first two seasons, you learn a lot. There's a lot of
Hmm.
self-reflect. There's a lot of highs and lows. What I have learned a lot is, yeah, when I say it's like a game, I feel like there are a lot of situations where you can say yes, you can say no. You need to be self-aware. You need to understand what's happening around you. I was going to go on Paradise last year. Um, Actually, believe it or not, I was in a good place. I thought mentally, I felt like I was getting in good shape, and I generally wanted to just finally get back out there. I had took my
Hmm.
time to heal, whatever, and felt like I might go. And I had been talking to some people, producers and stuff, and having some great conversations. And they were really scared that if I came down there, I would give too much good advice and give people, good mental clarity and good judgment on situations. And I think that they were apprehensive because they knew that, um, I have learned how this all works. So I get it. You want to see drama, you want to see people not make the best of decisions. And, looking back, especially with me in my first season, there's so many things that happened that I could have just said no and stood my ground. But yeah, I think when I say it's like a game, it's, you have decisions to make. Do you want to do this? Do you want to not do that? Do you want to stay true to yourself? And, I think a lot of the times you don't realize that because you're freshly new to the experience.
You were saying you
Yeah.
and Krystal connected over essentially like trauma bonding since you guys both experienced the villain edit. Did she ever say that she felt betrayed by producers or that they were putting her in situations as well? Like what was
Yeah,
her take on it?
yeah, I think there were definitely moments for her. And so, because at first I think she had a really good run. The first few episodes, there wasn't
Yeah, and
nothing.
then
Yeah.
they turned on her
I I
when
I
someone
think
else
she
went
would have. I
home.
think she would have made Final Four if she didn't, start doing things the way that she did. I really think she would at least made a good strong run for it. But yeah, I can give you an example from me. Because
Yeah,
it's hard for me to speak on someone else's experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the very first night, I don't know if you remember our season with Becca, but I think it was the first time they exposed like five guys to come on stage. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
they got to meet her, and then it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah. Okay.
Blake came on a
On the
horse.
horse. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. They did that. I
So
don't like that, but they did that a couple of times.
a guy walked across the stage, I guess, from Orlando, Florida. Didn't know who he was. Obviously, I grew up a lot in Orlando and Florida as well. And so a girl that I knew, she texted me and she said, "Hey, watch out for this guy. Blah blah blah. He's my ex." A good girl that I knew. And it was so crazy because I had just did my intro package, and
Okay.
that's a whole nother thing because they never showed my intro package, which is wild. So I sent it to the producer at the time. I said, "Hey, remember our conversation the other day? How Orlando's so small? This is what happened." And I sent her a screenshot of the girl's text saying all this stuff. Well, when we got to the mansion that night, obviously I got out the limo last. I had like the choir or whatever, and I went inside. Everything's good. Well, they pulled me aside and they said, "You got to pull this guy to the side and address him about you know, his intentions being here." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I'm like, "I don't even know this guy.
Who was
Like,
it?
I don't remember. I don't remember his name."
Oh, it was
He
not
got
even someone that stayed on the show.
No, he went home the first night.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I
and
don't even
so
remember either. Yeah. Okay.
they were like, "Yeah, do it." I'm like, I don't think that's right. I don't know the guy, and that would be unfair to him because let him express who he is, and
Mhm.
and they're like, "Well, if you want to be here, you got to do that." And I'm like, I'm like, damn, okay, so there we go with a threat. That was like,
Yeah.
wow, like, okay, like this is interesting. And so I awkwardly had to pull him to the side with Chris and Blake because I had talked to them first, like going in the house and got to know them. And I'm addressing this guy, and it was just, you guys, it was embarrassing. Like this the whole time. I'm like, I'm feeling so bad
I
for
don't
this
even
guy.
remember this made air.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I don't remember this.
and again, I guess he had his one-on-one time with Becca, and he's like, "Before we talk, let's bring Chris in here because
Oh my
there's some things
God.
I need to address." And I'm like, he didn't have to do that. They didn't tell him to do that, I suppose, from what I know. And I had to go in there, and the whole time I'm just like, man, what is going on? Like, this is where we are. And yeah, so
So that's an example of something you could have said or you could have pushed back on more, you're saying.
yeah, could have pushed back on it. And so another thing was like the speech. I don't know if you guys remember, we went to Virginia of all freaking places, and we did like this politics
I
at the
remember this
city
date.
hall,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to write, stuff about, Becca and answer all these questions and stuff. Well, they wanted me to just focus on the guys and like write all this stuff and like really start so much drama. And I'm thinking to myself, I had a really good first 4 or 5 weeks on the show, and then it completely just it went out of thin air. Just that whole good part just gone. And yeah, I'm sitting there in front of all these people in City Hall and talking all these things, and it just started so much more drama. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is very just. I just don't know what's going on. This is very weird. And so one of those other moments where you can just say, you know what, I'm just not gonna. And if that risks you going home, then so be it. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you know what I'm saying? Because there could be some very dire consequences with being looked at from the show, and so it can affect you not only in just mentally and physically, but in the workplace, your career, anything of that nature. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just you gotta know your power when it comes to that.
Do you feel like you were sabotaged?
I think I would only take accountability for myself. I think I blame myself. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? There's a lot of things where I could have just done differently. you know, as just a man, as an adult, you know,
Mhm.
and it's okay though, because you learn so much more, you know, seeing those weak moments. But
Yeah.
I would never cast blame on producers or anyone else, because at the end of the day, they're giving you the option. It's like, hey, you know, like they might be doing that, and you might be looking at it as like, you know, a little instigation. But no matter what, at the end of the day, it's you that is, you know, performing. You know, whether you're, you know, doing it genuinely or you're doing it out of character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they're kind of threatening you too, right? Like they're saying, "Oh, if you want to be here, this is what you have to
That
do."
was kind of crazy. Like I didn't know if that
Yeah.
was like a little like, you know, a little subliminal threat.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, obviously I didn't want to go home the first night. I thought it'd be extremely embarrassing to my friends and to my family, and you
Hmm.
know, and then I got the last rose that night. I was like, I was gonna have a heart attack up there just standing, and I was standing next to the guy, of course, you
Of
know,
course.
for the whole drama. And when I saw him next to me, I'm like, here we go. I'm like, I already knew for sure that it was gonna come down to him and I.
Of course you are. Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, oh God, I'm like, what did I just do? I shouldn't have done that. And so yeah, I mean, luckily it played out to, you know, where I got to stay, you know, so it's okay.
I want to ask about the TV wedding because there was some scene that I was just so confused by. For well, one, did your wedding feel like a real wedding even though there were cameras there?
To an extent, yeah.
Okay. Like you
Um,
guys actually had like a reception and stuff after.
yeah, yeah, no, it was a legit wedding.
Okay.
That yeah, there was it was yeah, always around it was. I think once it got to the what was it, like the reception, the after party, is that what happens after the
Yeah,
wedding? Like
it's
where
the
Yeah.
ceremony and the
yeah,
reception.
that's where like the show really kicked into
But
place.
that's where
Where
we didn't get to see,
oh
right?
no, like there was so much that happened, I feel like, you
What
know, throughout
happened?
that wedding. I mean, there
Who
was
hooked up?
there I don't know I don't know about hooking up. I know that there's people crying for sure. You know, and there was just odd pairings and tables that were set at the reception for specific drama and like conversations and things like of that nature. But when it came to like her and I, Crystal and I, you know, there was a lot of stuff that we were doing and speeches and talks. None of that got aired. Like there
Mhm.
was just that probably lasted like 4 or 5 hours, and there was nothing. You know, so I know Clay and Angela were something that was big.
Right. There's a
Um,
lot of focus outside of you guys.
yeah, there
Was that
was,
kind of a bummer?
of course. Yeah. You know, because it's unfortunate, you know, and the way that you think that what it's going to happen is you go down there and, you know, there was planning and all this stuff happening, but you have the expectation that this moment is about you,
Mhm.
right? The John Paul Jones thing was very unfortunate because I think
Oh, yeah.
my mom was a little rattled by all the drama, especially, you know, as I guess there was a party before the wedding outside of it with like drinks and food, and there was like, you know, a lot of things going on, and I know my mom, you know, she's very like so chill and sweet that she just doesn't want to be a part of anything, but she's seen it unravel. And I think like when I saw her at the reception, she was definitely like a little rattled about how much was going on, you know.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like
I think she
there's
was
a
nervous about what's to come.
right. Well, the one question
Yeah.
I did have, you and Crystal, or maybe it was just Crystal, I'm not quite sure, but go out to all the Bachelor in Paradise people, and you guys chose like 7 or 8 people that were able to stay, and the other people had to go back to the beach. And it was a very convenient group of people. So, how staged was that? Did
Oh,
like producers give you a
they
list of the people that had to stay?
yeah, they told us right before. Yeah. So like yeah, they told you, and I had to remember all the names in order.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, damn, why am I having to remember this
Like,
on
it's
my
my
wedding day?
wedding. I want to go like
Yeah,
party and hang out, and I have to be a part of this. Because that
yeah.
scene was just so everyone watched and they're like, oh, so you want Clay to stay, but not Nicole, who he was dating on the beach. And like it was all like picking and choosing who would make the most drama. So you went back, obviously they got you back on Paradise. How much did you get paid to go on Paradise?
400 or 500 a day.
Okay,
If I'm
that's
not,
the standard if you don't
Okay.
negotiate, it seems
yeah,
like
4 or 500
from
a day.
talking to people.
I know. I think up until this date, as far as I knew, Amanda Stanton's the one that's made the most ever.
Ooh, what was it?
Um,
Oh, you can't say that and then not know.
I don't remember. That's the thing. I don't want to just say a number, but I knew that from what I knew, 2 years ago that Amanda stand up until that point. I don't know if things have changed with anyone, but then also too, like the demand is not as much as it was like in our years of the show, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
followings and social media, it's different now. At the time, I didn't know that that was one
Yeah,
negotiable.
you wouldn't
Um,
know unless you heard from
yeah, and
someone.
two, I had just gotten off the show, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'm back on the island. So that was very strange. Like it was so fast. So I didn't even get to see my
Yeah.
season as it's unraveling, and I'm in paradise. And I
How
wish
is
that
that?
because it didn't air yet.
No,
It's
no,
it,
but like, how was that like a mental fuck for you? Like, I would be so in my head if I,
I'll never forget. I'll never forget. We got our phones back. We had just got engaged. We get into the hotel room. I open up my phone, and my mom's like, "Hey, Chris, I think you should turn back off your phone and not look at anything." And she's like, "Nothing is going good right now." And I was just like, "What is going on?"
Oh,
And
were
I
you
mean,
so
expecting that based on
yeah,
like
did you know you were the
your
villain?
experience filming the show, or were you
So I
blindsided?
I never had a bad moment until Vegas. Vegas, I got really drunk for Wayne Newton's house. Okay, I got way too drunk.
Mm.
I didn't eat breakfast. Leo,
Oh my
who was
God,
on my
Leo.
season, he was just drinking beyond belief, and so he's like, "Let's have fun." And Nick was there, or no, not Nick. Who was there? On our date, I forget, but it was just we went to Wayne Newton's house. It was pretty drunk. And we get back, and I don't know if you guys remember, but we had to perform. We had to wear these like tuxes at the Wayne Newton like
I don't remember that part. Yeah.
concert. Yeah, so we get back, and they take us to the hotel real quick before we go to like the stadium for like the night date. And I remember like wanting to change, and like they said, no, we have to wear tuxes. And I was like, man, I was so sweaty and disgusted. I'm like, well, I want to take a shower. And they're like, no, we got to go. And I was a little bit like perturbed. And so like I was sitting down looking over the Vegas thing. I'm like, man, I'm like, this is just like a wild thing. And someone came in, and I was telling them that I was like, I haven't had any alone time, with Becca in a while, in regards to like the last two places that we went, because everyone's getting like their one-on-ones and stuff, and drama was happening where it always just diminishes your time. And I said that, and then that night, you know they don't have Becca. I'm the only one that doesn't get time with Becca, and I was like a little bit, just done at that point. I'm like, this is just annoying, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there, and that's when I like kind of went off, and God forbid, of course, I had the tequila in me, so that probably wasn't just the best of combinations. And then from there it was downhill. So I knew that there would at least be that and Virginia, and I was okay with that. But that was just more than enough to make it really bad. So and when we had just gotten engaged, I think the Virginia episode was about to air, so Vegas had just happened. So there was
Okay.
a lot going on as far as negative publicity and things like that. And you can only imagine you're coming out on a high, and
Hmm.
then all of a sudden you have all these lows. So
Did you
it's
listen
a
to your mom and turn your phone off?
uh I kind of did, but then I was FaceTiming like my boys and like my best friends, and we were just we got to stay at the Chris Harrison suite for like a week, so we were just
What's
eating that
that?
up.
Yeah. What is the Chris Harrison
The
suite
Chris Harrison suite was like his suite at the Vedanta.
in
So
Mexico?
yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like a house.
Crazy.
And it's
Yeah, it was.
literally like where he stayed when he would host, obviously, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah. This dude had like a 3-bedroom penthouse, like just had a jacuzzi on the balcony, great view of Mexico, and yeah. So
And he
For
didn't
what?
even
What does
do
he need all these
anything. Yeah.
bedrooms for? Like, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, hey, power to him.
Wait, so why did you get to go there? Why did you guys get to stay there?
Well, our fantasy suite was there, and I think they felt we were the most genuine of the couples that were there.
Oh,
And so I mean, they treated us well, and then when we came back, they gave us a couple weekends, like every other weekend, which was, great. Like, for a few months, we're
Hmm.
getting lavish vacations and stuff like that. So I'll hand it to them. Like they really did their job while they needed to do their job. And, we ended up being the only couple that were engaged after what happened with Jenna and Jordan.
oh
Um,
yeah.
so we ended up being the only ones that survived that season. So I guess they were kind of like just nurturing us and stuff like that. So everything was good. And I think like a lot changed too, because when we came back, I had to go for mental law.
Mhm.
And so I'm back, I'm engaged, no one knows, right?
That's
Like
so weird.
the like the crowd.
Right.
And they called me up to the hot seat, which they didn't air because that was the first time where they said, we need you to go after the guys and do all this stuff. And I said, nah. And so like I was like, no, I'm not gonna do any of that. And they called me up to the hot seat, and I was just like, yeah, I was wrong. Like, I was apologizing and just sincere and just like really just taking accountability for everything. And they didn't show it because there was no drama. So
Wow.
yeah.
Interesting.
So the power of saying no.
But I remember that mental all. Jordan was fighting with everyone.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Colton, everyone.
Yeah. Well, if you have that character, you have to hold up to that character.
Right. Do you think Jordan was playing a character?
Oh yeah. Thank God he was though. It was entertaining the whole
Yeah, I
season.
mean, yeah, Jordan really helped that season along, definitely.
Absolutely.
So you touched on mental health before, and you've been vocal about mental health within the franchise. Recently, I'm going to read a tweet, if you're cool with it, that you said to Mike Fleiss. Do you mind if I read
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
You said you had a former contestant on the brink of suicide, not once, but twice, and didn't do shit. Luckily, that person had some people that actually care. Why wasn't there help? Because that person wasn't a part of Bachelor Nation royalty. Don't tell me there are more important things than ratings. And this was in response to Mike Fleiss saying that there are more important things than ratings, which clearly we know as viewers that's not the case.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on what you were referring to? We obviously don't need to name the person if you don't want to.
Well, surprise, that person was me.
Mm,
Oh,
So
I'm
I was
sorry.
speaking on myself, and he still never even responded to that tweet, believe it or not. Um, so I think the second time was more serious because I think if it wasn't for Kelly and Kelsey, two good friends of mine, Kelly Flanagan, Kelsey, um, then I actually probably might not be here if it wasn't for them too.
wow. Wow.
So the thing is like the franchise knew that something was going on with just my mental state and how I was feeling. Obviously, there was a lot going on from different directions, and this is all happening in a pandemic, right? And just so it was interesting because this happened like just after I was going to take a step back from Paradise because I told you I was going to possibly go on,
Right.
but from conversations and things that were happening, I knew that it wasn't in my best judgment to make that decision and go. I felt like they just didn't have just the best, road for me, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm not going to put myself in that situation. And around that time too, there was a lot of things just unraveling, and it, they knew that the what I was feeling, there was just like no compassion there or empathy. And so then it got into like July. I'll never forget this. It was July 2021. And obviously I was just like, there was just a lot going on, and I was still feeling some of the aftermath from everything. And I had wrote a close friend story, like you can only do your close friends,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and basically like saying goodbye to everyone on the close
Oh my
friends.
God.
Like did a story, everything, wrote everything to like my mom, my sisters, and they got the story, and like she immediately called me, and like Kelly and Kelsey both called me on three-way. They're just crying hysterical, right? Because we have a great friendship, a great bond, and they were just talking me through some things because like no lie, like I was ready to go that night, right? And like it was just wild. And so like they're talking to me, and we're crying, and everything's just happening and stuff like that. And after that, that conversation, Kelly had reached out to ABC, people in there. And so like they reached someone who I'm close with, who I used to be close with. He's a big producer. I'm not close with him much anymore. I think that's just my own decision.
Mhm.
Reached out to me, making sure I'm okay. And they wanted to set me up with this quote unquote like counselor or something to talk to me. And the dude just was like horrible at his job. Like there was just no dialogue or empathy or anything. And
The
I just
counselor?
it just felt like it was like oh like I'm just having to do my job real quick to like save face, if that makes sense, like for
Mhm.
whatever, just like this is what I need to do. But it just didn't feel authentic or genuine or anything. And I just completely just didn't want to be remotely, like it just wasn't there's a difference between like true care and like true
Yeah.
compassion and like wanting to like really create like a regimen or something that we can do like to put you in the best place possible for your mental state. And it just wasn't, there just wasn't anything there, you know. And that was the second time. The first time was when I was with Krystal, and my buddies actually like really helped me out through that process. You know, because there's a lot going on with the relationship, with the show and stuff like that, and just the residual mental like, you know, breakdowns that you get from being through such experiences. And yeah, so there was just a lot of things where I was just getting so much more from my friends than they could ever give me. And,
Mhm.
you know, thankfully, like, you know, you got your, you know, your therapy that, you know, I got like for like the next few months afterwards, like my own therapy, like from, you know, professionals who work in that specific space and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But you could tell the difference between people who are really trying to like help you navigate rather
Yeah.
than just like say like, well, like, you know, are you doing, I've never done drugs in my life. They were just like, well, just make sure like if, you know, you're not doing drugs and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I was like, this is just weird. So, you know,
Yeah,
I
it
took
seems like they're just trying to like check it off so that
yeah,
it's
just like
not a
right,
liability.
just check it
Yeah.
off, you know. Exactly. That's a great way to put it. So, yeah, that was my tweet, and that was in regards to me personally. You know, wasn't trying to make it about myself, but just letting you know that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of other people that I know that are in my position within the franchise. They might not share it, but they definitely go through some things, and it's super unfortunate because, you know, it just seems like there's a lot of other shows that really just praise everyone and try to put them in the best position possible for the aftermath.
Mhm.
You know, in regards to a lot of ways, there's so many different shows, but for some reason, this franchise, they just don't. And there's really no true like regimen and game plan, like at least as far as I knew, you know, dating back, that's, you know, just making sure you can really get any type of help you need for however long that you need it
Right.
for, and, you know, just give you guidance and direction along the way, you know, because everyone
Yeah.
handles and processes their journey differently.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, I think
And
it's really important that you're speaking out about this because it is a huge issue. We recently had McKenna on the podcast and she shared a similar experience about how the show really was horrible for her mental health and she didn't get the support that she needed. So I thank you though for sharing
yeah.
this because I think it's important that people hear this stuff.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sure that there's people from this season that are probably struggling, you know, that they've
Hmm.
got situations. And at the end of the day, it's like if you don't know where to look towards or know and you know, let alone have the resources, why can't a franchise like provide that at least for now to
Right.
educate and help people so that way we don't have to deal with, you know, catastrophic things like someone potentially taking their life or anything of that
Right.
matter.
Yeah.
And he never responded. He sees a tweet like that and doesn't respond.
Nah, he wouldn't respond. There were some things on my season, Paradise, where got a lot of backlash, but were actually not true to the fact of that actual visual of what took place, if that makes sense. And I was so shocked to see that something was translated into that, knowing the outcome of what happened at the end of that show. You know, when you think that someone is, you know, that someone is in love, they're getting engaged, you know, it's like really big. It seemed like there was no positive momentum for me, you know, especially like in the beginning stages. And it was weird because there was two scenes I remember distinctively, one with Jordan that really caught me off guard as to why that was even aired because it made no sense. Yeah, so we're up there and Jordan is asking me, he's like, man, there's so many girls here. Like, if you could go on different dates throughout the day, like, if they let you, like, how would you choose? And, like, what would you choose for that individual for the date? Right. And I don't know if you guys remember, but it was, you know, it was like, oh, like Bibiana, you know, take her to breakfast and we would have this, you know, and Annalise, you know, take her to lunch, blah, blah, blah. And they turned it into like us, I don't know, like classifying women as like meals. It was like I don't remember, but it was so bad from the viewer's eye, right?
Huh.
It was just like
Yeah.
it
So out
felt
of
like we
context, it seems.
so out of
Yeah.
context and like we were degrading women when it was like the conversation was just about dates and like what would you have on the date. But for some reason they thought it would be funny or cute to, you know, put it into a context of, you know, we're classifying women as this when that wasn't even the case at all. And so seeing that, it was like ever since that moment I knew that no matter what, even if I'm going through good times, like they just never had the general best interest for me because I'm not Bachelor royalty. I don't know if you guys remember, but they put us in a hot tub for Colton season to
I
like kick
do.
off the season. It was
Yeah.
live TV. And you know, everyone made fun of us for that, right?
Why?
I don't remember, but it was just like a lot of negative publicity and like it affected Krystal. And we were just like, it was like, you know, once again, they're just treating us as like the butt of the joke. You know,
Wait,
and
I was actually going to bring up that because I remembered you guys being in the hot tub, but I wanted to ask, how did I get you to come back to do those types of things, and are they paid?
if they are paid, it's something like $750
Okay.
for the day or something, like for that time that you spent.
Mhm.
It
What about like getting there to LA or
Oh
wherever
yeah,
you
do they
need to
book your
go?
flight? They probably do, right?
Yeah, well, we drove because we were in San Diego, but yeah,
Okay.
they put you up in a hotel.
Okay.
You know, like they'll do stuff like that, like you know what I'm saying. But it just felt like we were
Mhm.
the butt of the joke because a lot of people were making fun of us and the hot tub and like why are we in a hot tub on a premiere
Mm.
night? You know, which was like if it was a paradise thing, like okay, that might make a little bit more sense.
Yeah. I
But it was
remember the
like
hot tub, but I don't remember it being like weird. I thought it was funny. And I feel like, didn't you make an announcement, but the announcement was just that like something about a dog? Did you guys like get a dog or something?
oh yeah, were we gonna yeah we were gonna get a dog, I
They
believe.
teased an announcement though, and then the announcement was like
Yeah.
something like that,
But
like
I
a
think like
dog.
the dog wouldn't get along with the other two dogs, like the Pomeranians. I don't remember, man. It was
Yeah.
a long time ago. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt like you know, that also I remember really stood out because, you know, just what people were saying. I'm like, man, it just was crazy because, you know, at the end of the day, people can only judge you by what they see. And unfortunately, if they only seen like mishaps and negative kind of situations, it's so unfortunate because that person will only classify you as the negative aspect that they saw because they don't know you. And I can totally understand that. I get that. If you see something, you're like, oh wow, you know, and you've never seen anything else, that's all you can know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you know, you got to bear, you know, you have to deal with that. But yeah, I just feel like, you know, even up to what I was expressing about the story about you know, the mental health stuff, it just never seemed like there was like any true like real care or just consideration of at least myself, especially like when we got divorced. Like that was crazy. Like no one reached out. It was like
Yeah.
the person in charge of media was like, "Oh, we're gonna post something on the website," and to Krystal, and like that was it. But no one ever checked up on like the well-being. How are you doing? You know, like you know, just you would think like something like that is pretty drastic. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like it's not. This wasn't like some like high school relationship. You know, unfortunately, this was like in the public eye, and you know, it was pretty wild to say the least.
Hmm.
But there was just no like man, you know, like just having a true vested interest in how you're doing throughout any of that time. And I think that only added to the pile up of what you're feeling. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it
No,
does.
it does. Yeah.